It's our first 3 months on the job and how to be successful. Today we have Shauna Bell, an HR consultant from the University of Manitoba with us today. Shauna is a lifelong learner and committed to assisting organizations in improving the employee's experience. She has a bachelor's degree in labor studies, a certificate in human resource management, and a legal assistance diploma. Shauna has 14 years experience working in human resources, mainly in the social services sector in various roles, including HR clerk, HR consultant, HR manager, and HR director. Her newest role starting in 2024 is HR consultant with the University of Manitoba. Shauna is a member of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit Human Resource Professional Group. She is a board member for Career Track and is passionate about helping youth realize and achieve their career goals. And I apologize, can you read the last two sentences there, Shauna, because they're just covered up for me?
Yes, for sure. Give me one moment, sorry.
For sure, I apologize.
Okay. So specifically youth from remote and underserved communities. And in my spare time, I enjoy golfing, reading, traveling, and spending time with my husband and daughter.
Thank you very much. My apologies. I wasn't, there's a big thing there. So I'm very excited. We are very excited from Workplace to have you here today in Success Skills Unwrapped webinar. So awesome. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Donna. Thanks for the invitation to do this webinar and that introduction. So hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So as Donna mentioned, I'm going to be talking to you today about your first 3 months on the job and how to be successful. So we'll talk about how to know what is expected of you in the workplace, how to make a good impression on the job, some tips and tricks for belonging in the workplace, and then we're going to touch very briefly on your rights as an employee and what to do if you feel that you've been treated unfairly in your career. All right, so I've been working for more than 20 years now. My first job was washing dishes at a remote fishing lodge in northern Manitoba when I was just 12 years old. Since then, I've worked in approximately 17 different jobs in various sectors of employment. While some employers, they have a great onboarding process, it's important to note that many employers do not provide adequate training when training their new employees. So as a result, it often falls upon us as employees to learn our jobs and make a good impression during those first 3 months of employment. So these are our two primary goals that we should aim to achieve during our probation period. So how can we achieve these goals? So before we dive into that, I'm just going to touch a little bit upon what a probationary period is. So the probationary period can be anywhere from 30 days to 6 months or longer. So probationary period, that's a trial period where the employer and the employee assess suitability. And the employer decides if the new worker is a good fit and able to perform the job duties. So as I mentioned, it's anywhere from 30 days to 6 months, but sometimes it could even be a year. So if an employee doesn't pass their probation period, sometimes the probation period is extended, and usually they will tell you, and this means that they see potential in you and they want to give you an opportunity to prove yourself and learn your job. If you don't pass your probation, then the other alternative is termination. And if this happens, usually an employee is let go with little or no notice, and the terminated employee is left looking for a new job. As I mentioned, it's also the probation period is also a time where the employee assesses suitability. So this is the time when you as the employee are, could you see yourself with the company on a long-term basis? If it's not, and you want to terminate you want to quit, then I would just say that make sure that you check your employment contract, your employment letter to see how much notice that you need to give. If it's not in your employment contract, then you would use Manitoba employment standards as a guide, and that is 1 week if you've been there less than 1 year. So 1 week's notice to your employer. So that's some information about your probation period. The ultimate goal is to have a successful probation period where at the end of that time, both you and your employer are confident that this is a good fit. So next we'll move on to know what is expected of you. So dress code. So make sure that you ask human resources or your manager that hired you, ask them what the dress code is before you show up on your first day. You can also check social media or their website for more information. If you have a uniform that you need to wear for your job, make sure it's washed and cleaned and ironed before you show up for your first day. So within your first week, you should ask about an employee handbook if they have one, and then you'll review the company policies and procedures. So some common policies that you'll want to read are code of conduct, respectful workplace policy, and the safety policies. If you don't understand anything, make sure that you check in with your supervisor to ask questions. One more policy that I want to bring up that you should know about is the sick leave policy. So for example, if you or your family member is ill or someone that you take care of in your household is ill and you can't show up for work, then usually the sick leave policy will outline how much notice is required to give. So that could be anywhere from an hour's notice to 8 hours. And then usually the policy will outline how you should call in. Sometimes employers prefer to receive a text message, an email, and sometimes they prefer a phone call. So make sure that you know that so expectations are clear. As well, many employees will give you what's called a job description. And this is a document that outlines your duties, tasks, and functions of the job. So if you have a job description, make sure that you review it several times during your first few weeks on the job. And ask your supervisor questions if you don't understand a specific task or function that you're responsible for. If you're receiving job shadowing or on-the-job training, keep a notepad with you and take lots of notes so that you can refer back to that if needed. And don't be afraid to ask questions so that you understand your tasks thoroughly. 9 essential skills. So for employment, it's crucial to possess skills that will contribute to your success. So these 9 essential skills here are from the Employment and Social Development Canada website. These are 9 skills that are considered highly valuable by employers across various industries. So employers look for these skills when they're interviewing and when they're assessing new hires. These skills can have a significant impact on your career. So it's important to develop these skills and improve these. This will increase your chances of success in your career. Many of them are self-explanatory. So for example, communication, writing, numeracy, adaptability is one. So for example, adaptability. So that's the ability to adjust your goals and behaviors when change occurs. So for example, if you have to meet a deadline and you have to change what you're doing or change a plan, then being able to adapt to the new deadline is a skill that an employer will want to have. Learning new tools or changing your behavior once you receive feedback is another example of adaptability. Digital skills, so that's the use of technology and social media. Keeping up with changing technology and knowing how to communicate through various platforms is very important to employers. I encourage you to check out the Skills for Success website under Employment and Social Development Canada. There's some great resources on this website available to you. A lot of them are free, and they have assessments, they have tools, various products that you can download and use to improve upon these skills. All right. So during the first few months on the job, you'll likely do some job shadowing, some observing. You'll take part in informal and formal on-the-job training. You'll probably take some courses. So this is your chance to learn and watch what other people do. I usually tell people, take the initiative to learn. Look in the company policies and procedures before you ask a question, And if you can't find an answer, then by all means, reach out to your supervisor, reach out to your other coworkers to ask the question. If you have spare time while you're learning, it's always a good idea to reach out and ask a coworker if they need help with a task. So this shows initiative, and it also is a great learning opportunity. Punctuality. So punctuality is very important to employers. Make sure that you're arriving to work on time every single day. If you're typically a late person, there's a few strategies that you can put in place at home to make sure that you're getting to work on time. So you can pick out your clothes, you can pack your lunch, you can shower the night before, and then in the morning, you have a lot less or more time to make sure that you're getting to work. Another strategy is you can put your alarm clock across the room, away from your bed, so that you're forced to get up out of bed in the morning to turn off your alarm clock instead of pressing the snooze button. Before you start work, make sure you drive to the office or bus to the office and figure out how much time it takes to get there. And then plan so you have enough time for transfers if you're taking the bus. Another way to make a good impression in the workplace is to be a team player. So pitch in and help out your coworkers where it's appropriate. As well, if someone asks you for help, this is your opportunity to say yes, as long as it doesn't interfere with your job duties. So for example, if you're working on a machine or at a till, it wouldn't be appropriate to leave your post if there's customers there to help out somebody else. But you can make that judgment for yourself. So show enthusiasm and a positive attitude while you're at work. Make sure that you're getting enough sleep the night before so that you're energized and refreshed throughout the day. As I mentioned, watching and observing is a great way to understand company culture. Some tips are to look for the language that people are using. Is there specific business lingo or acronyms that you can use or should be aware of? Take note of how people prefer to communicate in that workplace. Is it via text message, Teams? Is it, do they prefer phone calls, emails, face-to-face conversations? The more you know, the more that you can begin to utilize those tools. And I will also say this again, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you find that you're asking too many questions, one tip and trick is to keep your notepad and then write all your questions down. Set a meeting with your supervisor, and then sometimes you'll find that in the days or hours leading up to that meeting with your supervisor, you will find the answers. So you won't have as many questions when you go to them. You can also spread out your questions amongst your colleagues. Ask a variety of people. This way you're learning lots of different strategies or different ways to accomplish your job or tasks. Okay, so developing relationships in your workplace is crucial. It's something that you're going to want to do to make sure that you're creating a pleasant and productive workplace for yourself. For some people, it can be challenging to initiate conversations for sure, especially if you're introverted or if you're shy. But don't worry, there are plenty of ways to break the ice without feeling overwhelmed. So one effective way to spark a conversation is just to ask people about their day. So people love talking about themselves, and this can be an excellent opportunity for you to learn more about your coworkers. And don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone and initiate conversation. So who knows, it might lead to an unexpected friendship with a coworker. Another way to get to know your coworkers is by introducing yourselves to them in the lunchroom. Ask them about their job roles, what they do at this workplace. This can help you understand their responsibilities as well as get to know them and figuring out how you can achieve how you can contribute to the team as well. That will be helpful for that. Building relationships in the workplace takes time. Okay, but actively listening and learning about your coworkers is a great way to start. Open communication is super important to avoid any conflict in the workplace. So be aware of your body language and honor your commitments to your coworkers. If you say you're going to do something, then make sure that you honor that commitment and show up and do what you say you're going to do. That goes a long way in building trust with your coworkers for sure. And then lastly, volunteering and joining committees is a great way to get to know your coworkers. As well, these are great opportunity to build your skills. So for example, workplace health and safety committee, social committee. If your workplace has any book clubs that you can join, that's a great opportunity. So don't hesitate to take those opportunities, volunteer for any projects or any social committee activities. Okay, and be patient with yourself. Starting at a new job can be daunting, especially if you're new to the workforce. The unfamiliar environment can get overwhelming, and it's normal to feel stressed and anxious. So during this time, make sure that you're prioritizing self-care and make time for activities that help you rewind and unwind and relax. So you can do meditations, you can do yoga. If you're familiar with the apps Headspace or Calm, you can use those. Another great resource is checking your employee assistance plan. So that's EAP. It's available through many employers' benefits, and that is access to counseling services. So if you're struggling a lot with anything, it could be like communication, it could be stress related, those types of things. EAP is a great resource for you if you have that in your benefits plan. Also, don't be afraid to lean on your friends and family for support and advice if you're struggling to adjust. They can definitely offer fresh perspectives and help you navigate the challenges that come with a new job. Okay. All right, so we'll touch quickly on knowing your rights as an employee. So if you feel that your rights have been violated or if you've been treated unfairly, so there's a few resources that can assist you. So for example, pay breaks, overtime. If you feel that you haven't been paid correctly or if you haven't been receiving any breaks, the Employment Standards website is an excellent starting point. So you can just type in Manitoba Employment Standards into Google, and they provide you a contact number. You can call and get more information on your rights as an employee. So that also would include information about minimum wage, vacation pay. If you work in a unionized environment though, and you pay dues, you're going to look in your collective agreement for that information. And as well, you would speak to your union rep or your shop steward as a resource. So if there's any issues at your workplace and you're unionized, so if those issues are related to pay, hours of work, or workplace health and safety, definitely speak to your shop steward. If you feel that your workplace is unsafe or you're exposed to any violence, Manitoba Workplace Health and Safety has information online about what to do. So they provide great information on how to report any hazards or unsafe conditions in the workplace, as well as steps that you can take to protect yourself. And then lastly, if you feel that you've been discriminated against or treated fairly for any protected characteristics such as age, sex, religion, race, anything along those lines, or if you've requested an accommodation and you've disclosed a disability, then Manitoba Human Rights Commission is a resource for you where you can go and make a complaint, or they can provide information. And they have people that you can call. They'll support you through that process, explain what a complaint process looks like, and then go from there. So in most cases though, it's recommended that you speak to your supervisor first or your HR representative before contacting any of these resources. This is because those people might be able to help you resolve the issue before it's escalated to a formal complaint. But of course, if it's serious, then by all means, use these resources that are available to you. Okay. So to summarize, starting a new job is exciting, yet intimidating for some. It's important to understand what your employer expects from you in terms of responsibilities and work hours and expectations. It's super crucial to make sure that you're reading your policies and procedures to make sure you familiarize yourself with company culture and expectations, and look up on the company website as well as social media channels to gather more information. Don't hesitate to ask more questions if you need clarity, and make sure you're keeping your notebook handy to write down instructions on your new colleagues share. So this will help you remember important details and ensure that you don't miss out on any crucial information. Your supervisor is one of your best resources at work, so try to build trust with that person, with them and your coworkers, and this will make your onboarding experience much smoother and help you learn your job more easily. You can ask for feedback and guidance from them when you start your new job. We have also discussed some options if you feel that you've been treated unfairly in the workplace. If you face any issues or concerns, bring them up to your supervisor or HR, as I mentioned. But if you're unsure of anything, don't hesitate to call and ask any of those resources that I mentioned. And then lastly, so be kind to yourself. Starting a new job can be overwhelming, but remember that you were hired for a reason. So take it one day at a time, and don't be hard on yourself if you make mistakes. With time and practice, you'll become more confident in your new role.
Excellent. I want to thank you, Shauna. I just want to let you know, right when you started, someone said, "Love this, great start." So the comments are people are letting us know that they're enjoying it. I just have a question. We have some questions. So, what happens when I'm told the workplace culture is one way, and then I actually get in there and the culture is somewhat different? What is your recommendations?
Okay, yeah. So I think that you'll want to form that opinion by yourself. And way to do it is just immersing yourself in the culture of the organization. So as I mentioned, getting to know all of your coworkers, getting to know your job thoroughly, getting to know the processes and the procedures of the organization. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, it can be frustrating at the beginning because you're taking all of this information and it's overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the stress of that is not an accurate picture of what your experience is going to look like long term. So I would say definitely give it some time and then make that assessment about company culture on your own. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will have a negative experience with an employer, but that experience is theirs and theirs only. And you would just go in and make that determination on your own.
And that's a really interesting thing because, they say like we form our opinions on a workplace or on people so quickly, right? And so just that ability to really keep your eyes and ears open. It's really hard for an employer when they bring a new employee on. Like the employer has a lot of responsibility. They're trying to figure out how to get this person to a space so that they know the employee wants to be productive. So what are some things that when we're a new employee, what are some things that we can consider that we may not be considering from an employer's perspective?
That's a good question. What are some things that
like here in HR, so what are some things people may not realize that they're like your leaders are, like their bosses are having to do for them to get them ready for work?
I think that there's a lot of work ahead of time that employers might typically do to get a person ready for the job. So, creating a training plan for them, getting them ready, setting up their workstation, whatever that might look like, all the paperwork that's involved with the whole process. and then getting that person ready to start work. So it is typically a lot of work. There's a lot of training, time and training that's involved with training a new employee. So a lot of the time, a supervisor is also trying to do their job while onboarding a new employee. So that supervisor specifically might be under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and the employee might not think of that. And sometimes, that might affect the relationship, but that's not always the case. And that's just one example.
Well, I hear that all the time, though. I showed up, Dawn, and my workstation wasn't ready. And I'm like, it's not as easy as you think. Depending upon the size of the organization, there's so many levels. And sometimes I say they're like, do you wish you were nicer to your boss now that you've moved up, that you've moved into a different spot? And they go, yes, I wish I was a little bit kinder. Does that make sense? Yeah. And it's just an interesting thing. Someone said, I agree with your response. I think sometimes your interpretation of culture as seen from current employees or their interpretation of the culture is not clear. So it is really important for us to create our own interpretation of things and not let other people's ideas come in, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, you want to form your own opinion. It could be a great fit for you while it may not have been a great fit for that other person.
Yes. So yes. And some people have it. Sometimes it's like, well, how is it that you can, what happens when an employee comes up to the new employee and says, how come I'm going to throw some tough ones at you. How do you know, how come you're getting along with that person? Or how come that person's helping you out? They've never helped me.
A coworker is going to a new employee and saying that?
Yeah. So you and I've been working together and someone's helping you, but like when they haven't helped me since I've been there,
Okay. Yeah. There could be a variety of reasons. It could be maybe they were working on a project and they were a little preoccupied with a lot of the changes that have been going on in the workplace. And they just simply didn't have the time to help anybody else out when that person started. There could be, they could have been newer to the job. They could have been learning their own role and didn't feel confident enough to train somebody else. Mm-hmm. So I would say that it depends on the circumstances and it encourage that person to, don't be afraid to reach out and ask anyone if they need help going forward.
Mm-hmm. The reason I bring that question up is because it sort of, I see a connection to that belonging, right? Because now, you have a new employee and somehow they've been accepted maybe from another person's perspective of belonging versus someone else. So, that new employee sort of saying, that person has been helpful. Maybe you should, like I would suggest asking them, the new employee can also help older people, other employees bring in a belonging as well, right? It's an interesting dynamics with a new and older employee of how they can really assist each other in blending in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think organizations are taking better notice of their onboarding process these days. Yeah. So a lot of companies are doing a much better job now of training employees than they have been doing in the past. So a lot of people that might have been there a long time might have not had the greatest onboarding experience, but they were like, this is how I learned. This is how you can learn. You'll figure it out. But nowadays, I think that supervisors, employers, companies, they're all taking the time to improve their onboarding process so that it helps retain employees. Because the better the onboarding process is, the higher the chance that the employee is going to stay with that company. So definitely, a lot of companies are making changes for sure.
So as a new employee, if I've gone through my day and I have like 5 or 10 questions, I'm a question kind of person. Those who know me will understand that. Am I best to wait, ask my questions one by one? Like any recommendations on how I go about getting my questions answered?
Yeah, definitely. So I mentioned keep a notepad handy. Okay. Write down all of your questions as they come to you throughout the day. Then set a meeting with whoever, your trainer, your supervisor, and to go over all of your questions. And like I mentioned, sometimes you will find the answers throughout the hours and days leading up to that meeting. And then you won't have to ask them the questions. And then I would say take the initiative to go through all the policies and procedures of the workplace and try to find the answer first before going, because you'll find answers to other things that you weren't even looking for. And it's a great way to learn the job, learn the organization, learn the company. If you take the initiative to go and look for the information first, but definitely take lots of notes that you can refer back to and then look at, so in the future, if those same questions pop up, you have the answers written down for yourself.
Thank you. I have more questions, but there is a question I'm going to show you here. So I'm going to read the question out. What is the right dose of contact with HR when you start employment, and how to approach HR effectively?
Yeah, I don't think that there's a right dose per se. And I think it varies from company to company. Some businesses that are larger might have a bigger HR department that is more involved with the employee onboarding process. But you're definitely going to want to contact human resources right off the hop if you have any questions about like your benefits, for example, any of your onboarding material that you might have not had gotten clear answers before you started. So for example, like if your HR department handles tax forms or anything like that, sometimes smaller companies do, and that's the first place that you would go is HR. So if you have any outstanding issues from your new hire, you'll want to talk to them about that. If you have any specific questions about any of the HR policies, then you can definitely go to HR and ask them as a resource. Sometimes companies have like a 1-day onboarding orientation training, and those can be facilitated by human resources. So that's a great opportunity to learn and connect with your HR representative. Donna, what was the second part of the question?
I will show it to you.
How to approach HR effectively. Okay, so that depends on whether or not your HR department is close to you. So for example, if you're in a large organization where the HR might be at another office, or they might be out of the city, a simple email would be fine. If they're in the same office as you, I would say that, send them an email, give them a phone call and say, I want to chat about this, and set up a meeting with them face to face if needed. And then they can just let you know, like, oh yeah, come on down to my office, or they can say, here's the information via email. I would just say that send them a simple email and then connect that way initially.
The question that comes to mind as I'm listening to you would be, as a new employee, if I'm going to see HR, should I let my supervisor know, or do I just leave them out? Like we're talking about building relationships with others, right? So yeah. What are your thoughts?
Definitely. I think I would contact my supervisor first, unless it explicitly says somewhere, go to HR for this. Okay. You said it correctly, Donna, building relationships with your supervisor and doing, the work with them before you take it elsewhere is a good strategy. That shows trust and all of that good stuff. But, if you feel that if things are not going very well and you do need to contact HR confidentially, definitely they will be there as a resource for you, and you can just go straight to them.
Yeah, that's the one thing that comes to mind is the idea of just those different ways of building relationships. So one is, if going to HR, saying going to HR because I just need to ask some questions about some paperwork. Let them know so that you just haven't left the floor. They also understand that you've gone there for the. But what about, this concept of, we talk about punctuality. Mm-hmm. It's a very big conversation. Or it could be small, depending upon how you look at it. But the idea, though, about communication with your leaders. So if you know that you're not going to get something done, or that tomorrow you're not coming in for a reason, like what is your thoughts on the timeline to let your supervisor know?
Yeah. So definitely going to want to ask that question right off the hop because you want to know the expectations. So you'll want to know whether they expect you to call them 1 hour or 8 hours ahead of time. You'll want to know how they prefer to be contacted if you're going to be calling in sick. The reality is we all get sick. We all have family, children that we take care of. There are definitely going to be days that you will not be able to show up to work. So advising your supervisor or whoever you need to let know that you're not going to be there. If you have any meetings that day, or if you have any like specific commitments that you need to let your supervisor know about. Hey, I have this meeting later on with this person, etc. I need someone to cover for me or cancel. Just be open and honest with that communication so they can plan appropriately for when you're away. As well, if you have sick time, like a sick time benefit, for example, they can apply that sick time so you make sure that you're paid appropriately.
I also think about the idea of people generally don't like to give bad news. Does that make sense? And so, people perceive the idea that, oh, I'm not going to get something done. So I'm a new employee. Someone's asked me, I told them I would get it to them by noon. I'm not able to. I realize by 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm just not going to, because my boss needs to look at it before I'm new, right? They want to look at it before it leaves our departments. What are some, I know I have my own opinions. I'm really curious to know what you think. What would be your recommendation in those spots?
Yeah, I think open and honest communication is the best policy. If you can't do something that you said that you were going to do, then make sure that you give somebody the heads up. And that open communication goes a long way. You can ask for, extensions on the deadline, for example, and explain your reasons why you couldn't complete that task. Let your supervisor know, as well as you can ask others for help if you find that you're not meeting deadlines or you're not able to follow through on certain tasks. Because if you find that you're overwhelmed, reaching out to your supervisor is one of the better resources available to you.
I sometimes even think that I'm going to be an extra hour. I need an extra hour because I need to review it. That idea of just being able to be upfront, that being upfront with the person saying, I'm going to need an extra hour, because there's a good chance as a new employee, they haven't always thought that the person, right? The person might be waiting for them and scheduled their afternoon around it as well. So it is really an interesting dynamic, because talk about belonging, fitting in, creating culture. It's a really interesting mix, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure when you're first starting out. You want to make a good impression and you want to show that you're capable and able to do your job. So there is that added pressure, especially when you're first starting at a new place of employment. And I mentioned it before, like, be patient with yourself. You're gonna be able to, things will get easier. You won't spend a lot of time trying to figure out your job. It'll just come easy and natural to you once you've been there for some time, and you'll be able to, meet those deadlines a lot better, because you won't be, busy trying to find the information.
Yeah, for sure. So what happens when I'm new, and people have asked me to do stuff, and then other people have asked me to do stuff, and now I've got these piles, and they're bigger than I was expecting. And your comment was doesn't impact your duties, I believe, to be a team player, right? Any strategies on what to do? Because it's a real important part. Like, it's a huge thing for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that comes down to prioritizing and time management. So time management is one of those skills that employers really, really value. So looking at your priorities and your deadlines. So identify what those deadlines are, put them in your calendar. If you need extensions, ask for extensions. Keep yourself and your desk or your workspace organized so that you know where to find information. And then If you're unsure about something, then you can go out and ask for that information. So prioritizing time management, knowing what your deadlines are, keeping yourself organized will all help you achieve your goals at work.
And would it be fair to say that if I'm in that spot that the person I should talk to is my supervisor, because they may not know what's going on. They may not realize I'm getting these piles of work from other people. Would it be best for me to let them know what's going on, or should I just leave it at my desk?
No, absolutely. Let your supervisor know what's going on. They will assess the situation, and then they will determine whether or not, work needs to be delegated elsewhere. Are there people or resources that they can bring in to help you do your job? Because at the end of the day, they want you to be successful. They want you to succeed in the workplace, because that makes their job so much easier. So they are going to help you out. As long as you ask for it, as long as you're open and honest about what's going on, and not hiding things or, pushing things under the rug, that's not going to help at all. So just be clear with your supervisor. This is what's going on. This is where I need help.
Nice. Thank you. I have another question.
Yeah, I think that, so Mohammed, I think that that's a great question. So usually if you're in your interview, typically for a supervisor or a manager, they're going to ask those types of questions. And then once you start as a manager or supervisor, you are going to have a manager or supervisor that you report to. You'll want to follow the company policies and procedures when it comes to management. So if there's a specific type of, style or expectation that they have from you, the best course of action is to follow that. But if there isn't none and they're open to different management styles, then I would say definitely reach out to your supervisor. Connect with them, let them know, like, this is how I operate. This is what I plan to do. What do you think about that? So your management style, that is something that not necessarily comes through human resources. Like, we wouldn't necessarily tell you how to manage your employees unless there's something that's going wrong, like there's some performance management issues or disciplinary issues. Then it would come to human resources. But when it comes to the day-to-day supervising and managing of your employees, typically you would be responsible for that, and you would consult with your own supervisor on that.
Thank you. That might also be one of those belonging questions, right? Does that style, do the way you work, does it actually belong? It's an interesting connection point.
Yeah, it comes down as well to, like, company culture. What do they do there? Is your style similar to theirs? Is there things that you might want to change because it might work better at that workplace? Little considerations that you can make and decide upon on your own.
The skills for success, so it was nice to see that in the presentation. So the skills for success, when we start to look at them, should people expect to be at the same level, like a new employee, on all of them, would I expect to be at the same level, or would I potentially see myself in different levels within those 9 skills?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone is so different, and everybody has very different skill sets when it comes to those 9 essential skills. But the great thing is that people can improve all of these skills. Like I mentioned, there's tools, there's strategies. The big thing is practicing and putting yourself out there. So, for example, communication. If communication is something that you've identified that you want to work on, then putting yourself out there, finding ways to be a better communicator. So you can join, for example, a book club. they read books and then they come back and they talk about that book. So getting out there and talking and meeting people is a great way. Taking trainings that your workplace might offer. So if your workplace has a communication workshop, so take the time out if possible to go to that communication workshop. Another one would be the collaboration. So teamwork. How do you become a better team player? Well, there's ways that you can do that. You can take, again, you can take the courses that your workplace might offer. There's also free resources available through many organizations that you can go and sign up for. We're all, like I said, we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. But the great thing is that we're all capable of improving upon all of those types of skills.
So we talk about those two, and I'm a big believer when it is that little bit of a that focus on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I sometimes mention to people is that, communication is a really big word. And so one thing is to sort of, if you'd like to understand and be a better communicator, is actually maybe taking some of those definitions and talking to your supervisor about what that looks like. You know what I mean? Like, what does this actually look like in this workplace? Because what I found in my career is because something worked at workplace A or on project A doesn't mean it's going to work on B. And I haven't changed, ideally, right? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so just understanding that, do you think in the first 3 months, depending upon someone's job, they could ask for a mentor? Do you think I could go to my boss and ask if there's someone who could be a mentor for me? Or do I need to wait?
No, I think that would be a great idea and a great actually time to do that. If they have the capacity, then that's something that they would have to consider, but definitely it doesn't hurt to ask for it. And I would do that at any point in my career because, a mentor can help you with all of these 9 essential skills that employers value. So absolutely.
Beautiful. What about the idea about collaboration? How does a new employee really collaborate when they don't exactly know what's going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, collaboration. So that's working together with your coworkers to accomplish a goal. So if you're working on a project, how do you collaborate? How is work distributed amongst the team members in that project? People want to see, or supervisors want to see employees work well together. Mm-hmm. So collaboration, that could be, communication could be in that as well. But I think that problem solving is a big part of collaboration. Communicating openly and clearly with your coworkers to prevent conflict is also collaboration. But helping your coworkers with their job or helping them with projects or tasks is collaboration. So definitely something that employees or employers value.
So we haven't really had this focus today, but I thought I would ask it one of two ways. So I'll let you decide. So they're similar, and yet very different. What about the workplaces for individuals who are newcomers to Canada and they are working in a new place? Anything you'd like to say to them or share with them for their first 3 months?
Yeah, I think for newcomers, it's learning the culture of the work. Canadian workplaces can be overwhelming, absolutely. So putting yourself out there in the community, if that's something that you're comfortable with, volunteering out in the community, meeting people, that will also help you in the workplace because it'll improve communication skills. It'll improve a variety of skills that you'll need in the workplace. Mm-hmm. And then, so for example, if you have kids and they go to, if they're playing a sport, well, volunteering to help out with that sport, those skills will translate into the workplace. So I would say that is one thing that you can do. but asking lots of questions and using the people in the organization as a resource. So reaching out to your HR department, reaching out to your payroll when appropriate. There's some organizations have training and development or like departments. So reaching out to all of those people and asking for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. That's what they're there for. And most of the time, people are willing to help out.
For sure. And I think I haven't been working with EAPs for a long time, but I also think besides counseling, they also have some resources. So you can go on there and grab some resources. So there could be some resource tools there for them as well. So in regards to this. So what about youth? Let's just switch. Let's just talk about youth for a second. What are some suggestions to the employer that they can do to encourage and bring the youth on board? I'm sure we have many employers here. What are some things they can do to encourage and bring on the youth?
Yeah, I would say take a look at your what's available on your social media channels, your website, and a lot of youth these days are looking for employers that are environmentally friendly, or they have social enterprises or initiatives to help out in the community. That is very important to the young people these days. And so make sure that you highlight that in your on all of your online channels. I think that young people want to know what to expect in the workplace. So the more information that you can give them, the better. When somebody is coming in for an interview, specifically a young person, or it could be anybody really, just let them know what to expect during the interview process. So, how many questions are they going to ask you today? What's the interview process going to look like? What's the job going to look like? The more information that you give someone, the better, so they can make that decision for themselves whether your workplace is a suitable place for them. Your workplace is somewhere that they want to work, that they're going to be excited to work. Talk about the benefits that you offer versus some companies that might not offer. If you have exciting initiatives that have to do with it could be anything. For example, if you have exciting initiatives for any environmental topic, I just talk off the top of my head, I don't know, but tell them about that in the interview, tell them about that in the job posting, highlight all of those great things that you do.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually, when you're talking about that, it made me think it's almost like when you go to a resort and you go somewhere nice and they say, I'd like to show you, we have this over here, we have that over there. I feel like if I'm hiring this person, I want to actually I want to take an effort, if I have the capacity to do it, to actually be able to go and walk them. Let me take you over to the volunteer event that's taking place. Let me introduce you to those people. And I do think some of the belonging is, someone once said to me, Donna, you need to be invited. I know it's in the newsletter, but that's just for everybody. They said, I just want someone to invite me. So think about the capacity of just walking over and saying, how about I come and pick you up at your desk in a way, and we'll walk to the volunteer meeting, or walk to the health and safety meeting together, or we'll walk to this initiative meeting together. It makes such a difference when you walk in the door with someone. Does that make sense? Like, to have a buddy is absolutely a nice feeling at work. Okay.
Yeah, that would be amazing, if a buddy system. Definitely.
Yes. I know everybody likes having a buddy. It doesn't really matter who you are and what stage you get to in life. We have a couple of questions that all of a sudden popped up at the same time. So I'm going to go with this one first, and then we'll work our way backwards, just because it's most recent.
Yeah, I think that that's a great
question. Can I read the question? Because I forgot. What are some workplace qualities that a candidate should access within the first 3 months to determine whether to continue in or leave a specific workplace?
Yeah, great question, Mohammed. So that depends on your individual preferences or your goals. Do the values of the organization align with yours? Is this a company that you can see yourself with long term? Is there opportunity for personal and professional growth for you in this organization? You can ask yourself all of those questions and then decide whether or not that this is the right place for you to work. And if it's not, it's okay. Like,
That's a nice lead into the next
yeah,
one. This is a nice lead into, if it's not, it's okay, right? Here's another similar question,
What about worst case scenario and the 3-month probation period ends in termination? How would that individual explain this in their next interviews? Okay, yeah, definitely. If you're going to interviews and the employee or the employer asks you, what happened here? I mean, you can say it wasn't a good fit, and it was, I would say, not a great fit, and it didn't work out, and here I am looking for a new job. I wouldn't say that it's not necessarily to get into detail with anything. I wouldn't provide any specific information about why you left. I would just keep it short and succinct, but also honest. It wasn't a good fit. Then which led me to look for new opportunities.
And be able to identify what they are, right? Maybe what is it that you are looking for, so that I would think that if the person interviewing might want to know if they're the right fit before they start down the process together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let them know what you're looking for. It'll come through in the interview process a lot of the time, but definitely let them know what's important to you, what values. Make sure you're asking the questions in your next interview to determine whether or not that organization is somewhere you, again, would see yourself long-term.
Is it possible for me, depending upon the role I'm going for, of course, is it possible for me to ask if I could have coffee with somebody in a similar role? So if I was an account manager going into another account manager, could I ask those types of questions in an interview?
Can you ask if you can go for coffee with a coworker?
A future coworker, right? Like, I'm in the interview process. Like, could I ask to talk to a current employee?
Yes, I think that would be okay, but you would want to assess whether or not that's part of their company culture.
Okay.
I would do some research and look on the website. There's places where you can put an employee or look for employer reviews.
Yes.
Try to find that information before, or just ask the questions directly in the interview process. What information are you looking for? I would say that do that first.
Okay. I would just, that's my different, that's that jump to the pump. Let's just talk. Let me just talk to someone else, right? Demeanor. One of the things I do pay attention to is actually how, when I go for an interview or go for a project, go more for project interviews and things, is like, how do people actually function? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do they move around the office? How do they actually work? I kind of try and pay attention just to the feelings of the place, Are the same people here that were here a month ago? You know what I mean? Or, do people say hi to each other when they walk by? Do they make eye contact? Like, what do they actually do? Right. I find that there's a lot of interesting dynamics there. Here's another question.
So imagine you as an HR professional are applying for a role. What would be the red flags in a job description or during the hiring process? So lack of clarity in the job description would be a red flag for me. If you look at a job description and you wonder to yourself, what does this job do? Then to me, that personally would be a red flag. Another one would be disorganization, or being unorganized during the whole on interview process, onboarding process. Say, for example, you had an interview set, but they gave you the wrong location. One off time, that's okay. Maybe it was a mistake. But if there's more disorganization during the interview process, they've miscommunicated to you several times, given you misinformation, definitely that would be a red flag for me.
Fascinating. Yes. Any thoughts you'd like to close with?
No,
for
I would
yourself?
just like to say thank you so much for inviting me here today,
Oh.
Donna. It was really great to hear some of the questions that we had, very eye-opening. But yeah, good luck to you if you're out there and you have a new job. I know it can be scary, but it's a very, very exciting time. I myself started a job a month ago, so I kind of know how it feels.
You're
Yeah.
just reliving it, right? It's
Yeah.
perfect timing, right? We it's a perfect timing for everything. We really want to thank you very much for being here, Shauna. First 3 months on the job, how to be successful. You know, it's something we will use throughout. And even when we go to different projects, it may not be a different job, but when we move from one project to another, it can be the same experience that we're going through. So it's very relevant to everybody and many people here. So thank you very much for your time and knowledge. It's been nice working together. We do have our next workshop coming up next week. So I hope that you can all join us again. If you have any questions or like to be in touch with Shauna or ourselves, you know how to reach us. Have a great day. Thank you.